Hey everyone, Brandon and Kyle here, and today we have a very simple premise for you, and we're going to give you a few examples for it. And that is, you cannot train a muscle in a bad position and assume it's going to perform better in your compound lifts. And we're going to give you two examples of that today. One is in a common exercise that people use to strengthen their abs, and then we're going to show you incorrect applications of rowing and how that might very negatively affect your bench press. So we're going to get Kyle in the ab rollout, and the ab rollout is one of those staple core training exercises, right? However, if it's done poorly, we're still going to feel our abs contract, and we're going to feel like they're getting tired, but the positions we're in are not the positions that we want to be strengthening our abs in to transfer over to our competition movements or our barbell training movements. So if Kyle will give the example, and the first example we'll give, and this is probably the most common fault, is an overextension of the spine in the ab rollout. One of the most common faults in the squat is this overextended spine to create tension in the squat, and the biggest reason this is a problem is as soon as Kyle extends his spine globally to a significant magnitude, his hips are going to be forced to anteriorly tilt. Now, everybody at some point or another in their training career is concerned about their anterior pelvic tilt. However, they know that strengthening their abs and maybe loosening their hip flexors and a couple other things might be a route to improve that. So they go and do things like ab rollouts. But when they go and do ab rollouts, they express the exact same pattern that got them in trouble to begin with, which is this massive global extension. So what we want to do is train it in the exact pattern that we want to be able to replicate in our compound movements. Go ahead, Kyle. That might be a little too rounded there, but don't overdo it. Beautiful. Let's give you guys another example. We'll take you over to the dumbbell rack. Now for this example, we're going to compare the bench press. One of the areas that people struggle with the most in the bench press is stability at their chest and strength off of their chest, or efficiency off of their chest. And it's very common for you to hear people say, well, you got to do a 2-to-1 push to pull ratio in order to have healthy shoulders. That's usually not the case, and in fact, it's much more important to have quality movement than it is to have more of the lesser quality movement, rather. The dumbbell row happens to be a very low risk exercise, which is usually why people don't get injured from it. But they'll get injured when they go to bench press because they can express more force there, they're stronger there, and the shoulder joints usually end up paying the price. So let's show you the fault. Even though Kyle's going to be training the exact same musculature in his upper back, he's still going to be training his lats, he's still going to be training his scapula, his biceps are going to do a little bit of work. But if we do them in a nature that is non-repeatable, or is the pattern that we are trying to avoid in our bench press, doing more rowing is not the answer. The pattern that we are most commonly going to see is this dumping of the shoulder forward at the top of the row, and we're going to see that row hanging very, very short. So keep an eye. Kyle, do a couple more reps here if you're not too tired. Notice the range of motion that Kyle's even using. He's not even getting close to his chest with his hand, which if you're bench pressing, you have to get to your chest. Granted, if you're using a huge arch, you don't have to get as close, or you don't have to move the bar as far. However, when we're talking about improving patterns for our bench press, we need to be repeating those in all of our rowing movements. So instead, number one, Kyle's going to have to go much lighter on this to do it well. Give me a lighter weight there, Kyle. Go like just go 30 or 40. Instead of Kyle dumping over his shoulder and letting that scapula right up his back, he's going to be focused on maximal shoulder extension as to repeat what he would be doing in the bottom of the bench press, and he's going to be focused on maximal scapular retraction. And as Kyle retracts his scapula, he's never going to get to a point where he does this or hangs it short. In this pattern, despite it being lighter and maybe less taxing on the muscles, though if you try it and you're intentful, you might find it to be more taxing, you will find that this pattern is going to transfer over way better to your bench press than just doing double the amount of reps with twice as much weight and in a very, very poor form. So moral of the story is, guys, train the patterns or the muscles that you want to be able to express better in your actual barbell patterns. It doesn't do you any good to accumulate a ton of reps in broken patterns and you should always be mindful of those patterns you want to get better at. Anything to add there, Coach Kyle?
Just think of specificity. If I train specifically with a bad pattern over here, it's going to carry over specifically to a bad pattern over there.
Brandon and Kyle out.